Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a Dark Side. In September of 2020, a man's body was found burning in a ditch in Iowa. Who could have done this? Why was it done? Today, we're going to talk about the case of Stephen Vogel and the murder of Michael Williams. Right now on Love and Murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to Love and Murder, your weekly true crime podcast discussing cases of relationships that turn to homicide. I am your host, Kai, and in today's episode, we're talking about a case that some are saying is racially motivated and some are saying isn't. You be the judge by the end of this case. Before we begin, and as I always say, I want to say that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. Last week, I did a bonus episode about this horrible video that I saw from Instagram. If you want to see that video, I do have it up for free. You can actually go to the Patreon and it's on the free version of Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. You could see the video from Instagram. But if you want to hear what I have to say about it and the updates on that video, then go ahead and become an exclusive lamb, patreon.com/Love and Murder. And also by joining the Patreon, you get commercial-free episodes, intro-free episodes, so you don't have to hear this introduction. You get case extras, bonuses, and so much more. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. In the meantime, though, we're going to go ahead and grab your butts, grab your BJ's apple juice, murderandlove.com/BJ's, and let's get into the case of Stephen Vogel. On September 16th, 2020, the body of a man was found in Kellogg, Iowa. Firefighters had been out investigating a fire that had been reported burning in a ditch on the side of the road. Once they put out the fire, they saw that it was a charred human body that had been wrapped in cloth and plastic and tied up with duct tape and rope. Obviously, this was immediately treated as a homicide because I don't know anybody who would kill themselves and then wrap themselves up in duct tape and rope and then set themselves on fire. So, clearly. The body was sent off for autopsy, and on September 18th, the medical examiner identified the body as 44-year-old Michael Williams. They also reported that the cause of death was strangulation. Quote, the investigation has revealed Mr. Williams was killed on or about September 12th in Grinnell. Mr. Williams' body was then wrapped in cloth and plastic, which was secured with rope and tape, then transported to rural Kellogg on September 16, where it was set ablaze. While the investigation was ongoing, Michael's ex-wife, Jenna Bolt, spoke to reporters about his death, telling a news company, KCCI, that her daughter, quote, will not let me outside in the dark by myself because she's afraid of losing another parent. Obviously, this is Michael's daughter telling her mother this. And in speaking of his daughter, he actually had 5 children with his ex-wife. So he's a father of 5 children. On September 22nd, 4 people were arrested in connection with the murder. 31-year-old Stephen Vogel was charged with 1 count of murder in the first degree and abuse of a corpse. Stephen was being held at the Marshall County Jail because he had already been in custody for something completely unrelated to this. The next person they arrested was 55-year-old Julia Cox, which is Stephen's mom, and her boyfriend, Roy Lee Garner, who's 57. They were charged with 1 count of abuse of a corpse, destruction of evidence, and accessory after the fact. Finally, they also arrested Cody Johnson, who was 29, and charged him with abuse of a corpse and accessory after the fact. During the investigation, police found out that Michael and Stephen were, quote, known acquaintances who often socialized within the same circle of friends. The Iowa Department of Public Safety came out with a statement that said no motive in the case is known at that time, but they added that there was no evidence that led them to believe that this crime was, quote, motivated by his race, nor that his death was a result of a hate crime. The Iowa-Nebraska NAACP reportedly agreed with those findings. Just so you know, if you haven't figured it out by now, Michael is black and all of the suspects are white. Now, my question is, if there was no known motive yet, how could you just puff out your chest and say that it wasn't racially motivated? How do you know if you didn't know the reason why he was killed? How do you just automatically say, okay, people, calm down, let's settle, no rioting, nothing. I just want to say, we don't know why he was killed, but we definitely know it wasn't because of race. Questions, comments, concerns? Like, if you don't know, you can't say it's not because of race. You literally said you don't know. Anyway, the trial for Stephen started on November 10th, 2021. During opening statements, the prosecution presented its case against Stephen, who they said killed Michael out of jealousy and anger because there was a, quote, love triangle going on with Stephen's girlfriend. The prosecution said that Stephen was jealous of Michael and had sent Facebook messages just a couple days before the murder to a friend about his want to kill Michael. With this concern about jealousy and everything, at least 3 witnesses testified that Stephen had admitted to them that he had killed Michael and the reason why. And look, it's like I always say, if you're going to commit a crime, make sure the first thing you do is tell everyone you know and everyone you don't. Tell them your plans, show them in writing, keep all text messages, just tell everybody. Tell the ones you know and the ones you don't. That's what I always say. Then Cody took the stand and testified against Stephen. Oh, I guess he's not that much of your boy, huh, Stephen? He sang like a bird. He said that Stephen had told him that he had killed, quote, Black Mike. That's what y'all call this man? Black Mike? Okay. But anyways, on the stand, he said, Stephen had said he had killed Black Mike by hitting him in the back of the head and then hanging him with a rope slung over the rafters in his basement of the home that he shared with his mom and her boyfriend. So, okay, let me get this right. So you said you didn't know what the motive was, but you knew it was definitely not race. But then during the investigation, which is how you were able to bring this into court, it says that he hung him with a rope in his basement. This kind of sounds like a lynching to me. But no evidence that race had anything to do with it. I mean, seriously though, I think the main motive here was due to the love triangle thing, but the way the murder was handled was definitely race related. 69-year-old James Williams of Miami, Florida said, quote, if this isn't a lynching, then what was it? This is hate. So also in court, they kind of broke down a timeline of what happened based on witnesses that came forward and testified. So we already know that they're saying that Michael was killed on September 12th. Then on September 13th, Cody Johnson says that Stephen showed him Michael's body hidden in the basement. He said him and Stephen tried to move Michael's body, but they weren't able to. A second witness who remained unnamed also said that he went to Stephen's house that same day and Stephen showed him Michael's body as well. I mean, like I said, everybody you know and everybody you don't. Then on September 15th, Cody says that he was approached by Stephen again to help him move Michael's body. I don't know where these people find these friends. I'm telling you right now, I don't have that circle of friends, and I'm pretty tight with my friends. I don't have that circle of friends. I'm really wondering where people find people to just say, hey, can you help me move a body? And they're like, I'll be right there. Wow. And apparently it happens so frequently. Like, then when his mother, Julia, took the stand, she said that her, Stephen, and Roy, her boyfriend, disposed of a, quote, large object wrapped in carpet from their home. She said all she knows was that the smell from the carpet was, quote, making her sick. But then also she said that they placed Michael's body in the back of Roy's truck. Then Stephen bought gas for the truck with cash, and the 3 of them drove from where they live to Jasper County. That's when Stephen and his mother took Michael's body out from the bed of Roy's truck and they threw it into the ditch. Then Roy drove Stephen to his sister's apartment in Grinnell, and then his mom and Roy drove to Tama County to then throw some trash that could have been incriminating evidence, which was part of the floor, the carpet, bleach bottles, some plastic that they had used, rubber gloves that they had used, some socks, and a receipt that had Stephen's name on it saying that, basically they'd done all this. So they went to a whole other county and threw that in the trash. Now, to corroborate all of this, the state called a medical examiner who was on the case, who testified that the injuries on Michael's head had been consistent with blunt force trauma. And they also said that Michael appeared to have been strangled for 5 to 6 minutes, lambs. 5 to 6 minutes. I know that sounds like a short time, but imagine not breathing for 5 to 6 minutes. You can't even go 40 seconds without 5 to 6 minutes. I mean, some people can go over a minute, but still 5 to 6 of them. Court documents said that at 4:15 p.m. on that day, there was a witness who reported seeing a green truck matching Roy's driving on the wrong side of the road near Kellogg. At 4:30 p.m. that same day, so at 4:15, that's when the witness saw the truck. Then at 4:30, another witness reported a fire burning in a ditch. Then at 4:45, that's when law enforcement and firefighters arrived at the scene and found Michael's body. Another witness also testified to seeing Michael's body. They said at first it was concealed under a futon, and then later it was wrapped in plastic in an attempt to hide the evidence. How many times are people seeing this body just sitting there? How foul would the house smell by this time? The jury was then presented with more testimonies and physical evidence, which was the rope that was used for the hanging, or in court they said the strangulation that had been found near the body. So, as you can see, based on testimony, Stephen actually kept the body in the basement between September 12th and September 16th. I can't imagine the smell. I can't imagine oh my God. And then he also showed a minimum of 3 people his proud handiwork. Then on September 17th, 2 witnesses had come forward to identify Stephen as Michael's killer. That's when police interviewed Roy and Julia. And so basically that's how they ended up arresting all these people. Just literally everybody knew. So people were just like, yeah, he did it. He told us. He showed us the body. I mean, I could take you to where the body was. I could tell you what the guy looked like. He did it. He literally told us everything, showed us everything, wrote a book about it. So that's how they were arrested so quickly. Then James Bird Williams, who is Michael's father, also took the stand and basically spoke directly to Stephen. Quote, "You burned his body, threw him in a ditch like he was garbage. You're very lucky that I'm holding myself back from jumping over this thing and breaking your neck." Which, honestly, I wouldn't give a warning. I would have just done it. But I commend this guy because he's not me. And I'm not saying that violence should beget violence, but I'm also saying that it should. In this instance, you killed my child. Like, are you serious right now? Dante Williams, who's Michael's son, said, quote, "You thought you would get away with what you did. You thought people didn't care enough about him to research and find out what really happened. That is not the case. There's a lot of love behind my father." Paula Terrell also came forward to speak with Stephen directly, and Paula Terrell is Michael's aunt, which is his mother's sister. She came forward and told the court that Michael's mother had fallen into a deep depression since her son was taken from her, and she had suffered a stroke because of the grief and because of the stress. She's now living in a nursing facility, and she had to relearn how to walk. Quote, "In some ways, I'm glad my sister was not able to travel here for the trial. I am sure the state's pictures of her son's body and autopsy would have caused her demise. How do you tell your sister that the graphic pictures we all have seen of Emmett Till pales in comparison to the pictures of her son?" She also said, quote, "Like the Ahmaud Arbery case, prosecutors had to dance around race in order to get the conviction. Same thing here. To get the conviction and the highest penalty, we erase race. And by erasing race, we erase the fullness, the completeness of the story. And that actually puts all of us in danger. It makes it unsafe for us, especially as Black people in Iowa, because there's no indication to the public of how really dangerous our state really is. It's putting that rope around his neck and holding it for over 6 minutes, causing his death, is a definition of a hanging, a lynching. A white man lynched a Black man over a white woman. During closing arguments, Stephen's attorney, Aaron Scheibretz, I don't know how to say his last name, Siebrecht, and Mark Wallace did not explicitly deny that Stephen killed Michael. That, look, we're not saying he did it. We're not saying he didn't. But they did say that the murder was not premeditated, and also claimed that prosecution lacked DNA to prove the killing. Dude, you're reaching so hard. Maybe they lack DNA. They had 50 witnesses. This guy showed everybody and told everybody. Are you going to say all of them are lying? Seriously? You're really reaching with that DNA part. I can see if he kept it quiet and didn't tell anybody, and one of the people he told and tried to get him to help didn't take the stand to say, yeah, he clubbed Black Mike in the head and tried to get me to help move it in. Are you, okay. Okay. And then from my humble opinion, the evidence that I'm seeing, it was premeditated. Because didn't they say that there were Facebook messages saying that Stephen said he wanted to kill this guy? That was a couple days before he killed this guy. That sounds premeditated to me. Maybe the way he murdered him wasn't premeditated, but the want to do it was. Maybe he didn't think up, like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Step 1, I'm clubbing in the head. Step 2, I'm going to put a noose over a rafter and hang. Maybe the way wasn't premeditated. Maybe he just thought of that on the fly. But the want, it definitely was premeditated. On November 16th, 2021, in under 4 hours, and since we're talking about race here, an all-white jury unanimously found Stephen guilty of first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. He was then sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In addition, they just threw this on. They're like, okay, you get life in prison, but the cherry on top is 5 more years for the mutilation of the remains. And this is to be served consecutively. So once you die, we're going to put your corpse in a box and you're still going to be in jail. And after the 5 years, we'll put you in a cemetery. I mean, at sentencing, Judge Sean Showers said, quote, "You treated Michael Williams like he was not human. You clubbed him, strangled him to death, kept him in your basement like an animal that you would kill. You wrapped up his body, set it on fire, and you dehumanized Michael Williams. And Mr. Williams did not deserve that. Mr. Vogel, you're why Iowa has life without the possibility of parole. You don't deserve to be on the streets. You don't deserve to see a parole board. You are a dangerous, cold-blooded killer. You'll have the rest of your life to think about what you did, the loss and the pain that you caused, and the precious life that you ended. You're a cold-blooded murderer with hate in your heart. These sentences are made for people like you who commit these horrific offenses and take others' lives without any regard for consequences." His mother eventually pled guilty to abuse of a corpse and accessory after the fact. Her guilty plea admitted her involvement in, quote, hiding a human corpse with the intent to conceal a crime committed by Stephen with the intent to prevent the apprehension of Vogel. So she was sentenced to 7 years in prison, and her boyfriend was sentenced to 9 years in prison. Why did she get less? She literally helped him load the body and unload the body. And from what I remember during the testimony, the boyfriend just drove the car. Why the hell did he get more than her? Cody pled guilty on December 17th to a misdemeanor count of accessory after the fact. Yeah, I could see that because They just asked him to help move it. He tried, but he didn't. He didn't really do anything. So he got accessory after the fact. The prosecution recommended that Cody be placed on probation for 2 years as a plea agreement, for him going up and singing like a bird. But Judge Showers said no. He had the opportunity to come forward and say, hey, there's this dude down there with a dead body, and he asked me to help him move. He didn't take that opportunity, so no, he doesn't get probation. So in retaliation for that, Cody withdrew his guilty plea. I mean, what the hell did you think okay. His trial was then rescheduled for August 9th, 2022. He ended up being sentenced to 2 years in prison with credit for time served. Because I guess all this time he was in jail awaiting his trial and everything like that. So he was in jail for the 2 years. Michael's family remembers him as a loving father and grandfather who moved to Iowa and bought a house and everything just to be closer to his children. Everybody in New York, where he was actually from, tried to get him to come back to Syracuse, New York. They said, you'll be sorry if you live in Iowa. You need to come back home. But he wanted to be closer to his children. His family also said that they're thankful for the efforts of the judge, jury, witnesses, and prosecution that resulted in the unanimous guilty verdict. But they said that the case still raises question about Iowa's hate crime laws, which they want to see reformed. Quote, the justice system worked here. I'm satisfied. And this was a quote from Michael's father. Now, in the Patreon, the extras that I have there are a lot of court documents from all 4 people. I think the only one that I couldn't find court documents on was actually Stephen himself. But the other 3 I found court documents, and I put that in the Patreon, as well as pictures of all the defendants and of Michael. And that is the case of Stephen Vogel and the murder of Michael Williams. What did you think about that? Did you think this was racially motivated or it had anything to do with race at all? So the poll question I'm going to put out is, because it's a twofold. I don't think it was racially motivated, as I said, but I do think the mode of the murder turned into race. I think they did the lynching on purpose, but I don't think the reason for the murder was race. I think even if Michael was white, Stephen would have killed him, but he would have killed him in a different way. So that's my thought. I don't know how to put this question to basically ask that whole thing. So the poll question is, do you think the murder was racially motivated? I guess that's what I'll just ask. I'll just ask part of that. And if you want to add to that, you can then let me know in the comments below. So do you think the murder was racially motivated? Yes or no? You can answer that poll question. And if you want to see the extras in our Patreon, don't forget to go ahead and join patreon.com/loveandmurder. For episodes without intros or commercials, that's simply at the $3 a month donation tier. So it's at the base tier. You can get all of that. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. And also don't forget that a free and easy way to help out Lamb is by simply sharing this episode. Go ahead and hit that share icon on whatever platform you're listening on and share this one with your friends in your text messages. Also, you can also share it to Reddit. So go ahead and share it with your friends and share it with Reddit. Share it with everyone you know and everyone you don't. And that is all I have for you for this case. I look forward to seeing your poll answers and your comments. And as I end each full episode every week, I want to remind you that it's all love and no murder, y'all. See you in the next episode. Bye. Oh, don't forget to hang around and listen to my podcast, Commercial Guest. Bye.
Are you tired of hearing about the Ted Bundys and Jeffrey Dahmers on True Crime Podcasts? I thought so. We've got something just for you. I'm Pat.
And I'm Darcy, and we are the hosts of Pod of Terror, a true crime podcast that dives into lesser-known cases from around the world.
Join us every Thursday as we discuss the most vile, despicable human beings on the planet.
It'll be a dark and twisted journey, so don't forget your drink. You're gonna need it.
We're looking forward to seeing you next Thursday.